In this video, I plan to provide an update on how our passive solar greenhouse is performing in the middle of the summer, how the cucumbers are growing, how we filled out the rest of this space, some of the challenges we're dealing with, and the things that have been working and what we're learning. So stick with us. If this project's completely new to you, check out in the description below. There'll be a link to the playlist where I've documented all the different steps in building this. Very quick overview is that this is a project I built this winter around December, January. So this is the first growing season with this structure. Did pretty nicely for us in the winter, and now we're trying to figure out how to get the most from it during the summer months. The main goal is to have this space provide passive heat for our home in the winter and lots of greens through the winter months here in Zone 5B, New York. But in the summer months, we might as well have as much yield as possible. You can see just to the south of it, so of course I'm looking at this structure. This is the sun rays coming in towards the north from the south. And what we've done is planted out where the reflected sun off of the double insulated sliding glass doors comes down are a nice patch of greens. And what is really sweet about this, they're starting to really take off here. This is kind of a marginal little nook in that you can see the shade starting to come in from this apple tree. Another hour or two, this whole area will be in shade, which production-wise might be challenging if we were doing something like corn or soy and that sort of thing. But what ends up happening is we've got early morning sun bathing these beautiful greens, and they're capturing that excess reflected light. And then when the day gets hot enough that it would be stressful on them, it's the shade time of day. And so they're working quite nicely. And even though we're capturing as much rainwater as we can off of this roof using a really janky and simple guttering system, just a cut drainage pipe, whatever spills over waters these beds. So we don't have to water them much at all, which is quite nice. But let's take a look inside. Today is going to be around 80 degrees outside, and in the summer here we've had a couple days above 90. This space absolutely gets pretty warm, but again, just the design of having the apple tree to the south and west means that even though it heats up until around noon or 1 o'clock, it then cools off quite a bit once we get into the shade of later day. And the cucumbers we put in here are absolutely loving growing in here. We've watered them for a little while, and now the roots are deep enough that they're in a deep enough set of soil and water that they don't really need watering anymore. I'd love to hear from folks that grow cucumbers professionally or have done it for a while. What's the best way to manage these? I think I need to go through and probably trim out some nodes, thin them out a little bit. But you can see they're starting to form some cucumbers. We were concerned that they wouldn't be able to be pollinated since they were in this greenhouse space, but it turns out that the half-inch mesh that we have around is enough to allow flies and bees and the like to come in. And so they're getting pollinated. They're just not ripening up very quickly, but they're certainly growing with crazy vigor. I may need to head them back. Yesterday they got near the roof, and today they're hitting it. So there's just enough room for us to sneak through the middle, especially if I prune things back, and we look forward to harvesting from those soon. The other day, about a week ago, I found some tomatoes that were on sale, tomato starts from our local food co-op, and put those in. They were pretty lanky and starved, so I dug real deep all the way down to the base where the tubes are that run through here for geothermal, and planted those right on top, buried them in soil, and they're starting to take off. And these we'll try to manage. They're a little lanky and scrawny, but they're starting to thicken up, which is nice. And in between them we have some basils growing, and we had leftover sheep's wool, and so we're using that to insulate the soil to keep the weeds down, but also it's a light color, and so it'll absorb a little less heat from the sun. And so far so good. We've watered these a few times, and now they're growing pretty well. On the north side here, that's the sliding glass door that goes into the home. On the hottest parts of the day, we keep that door closed. If it's really, really hot, we even close the curtains. We have heavy, dark curtains on the inside, and that keeps the heat from this space from coming into the house, which works really nicely. next to these stones, which is a particularly warm microclimate, I put in a rosemary, and my hope is, as it grows this season, to bank it in soil and protect it here and leave it in the ground and see if we can get to zone 7B-ish to keep this rosemary alive through the winter. These boxes I just framed out and sat here will be filled with soil soon, and I'm going to put another smaller box across this one, and so we'll have a kind of like matching the pattern of these steps. We'll have some more crops growing in here, and I may very well actually set them to be vining crops so they can climb up and be covering this window for the summer months. Hello. You can see I film with an iPhone, an old hand-me-down iPhone 5. Anyway, so we can use vines during the summer months climbing up here to help provide more shade to the home instead of drawing curtains during the day. And on this section, I added another little mini raised bed with some wool insulated parsley to the south, and then scarlet runner beans, which will climb up this trellis again to provide shade from the later season sun hitting the house. So we'll see how all that goes. The basic layout is more or less finalized now. You can see that round table. We're keeping this space open with the idea that all winter we'd like to be able to bring some chairs out and have our breakfast out here on sunny but cold days. This last winter, the first test when we were at 30 or 40 degrees Fahrenheit outside, but it was sunny, it was around 70 or 80 in here, which is a really lovely temperature for our winter climate. To help deal with ventilation so it doesn't overheat, I took the polycarbonate panel off of this northeast corner, so up high is a mesh that keeps our cat from being able to escape and from rodents from coming in, but that heat that accumulates at the high point of the greenhouse now has a place that it's able to escape. And likewise along the south side here, you could describe it as a mistake in my layout for sure, in that I had 5 of these sliding glass door panels and a weird random gap that formed in the middle, but it was a beneficial mistake in that it reserved this space that all winter I had polycarbonate over that, and then I replaced that with battened down 1/2 inch by 1 inch mesh, and so that allows a completely vertical column of air exchange through the space. So between the front of this greenhouse being able to draw in cool air and that top part being able to vent out the heat, as well as this space over here, which is completely open with the mesh. Again, that's going to be for a compost heating system in the fall to heat this space all winter. But those 3 points make it so that air moves through here enough that it hasn't overheated at all. And it certainly hasn't overheated the home as long as that door is closed. It's a straightforward project. It was a lot of fun to build, learning a lot as it goes. And for the cost, I'm very pleased. It's 12 feet by 16 feet, and the basic materials without the roofing was around $100 to $200, and then the roofing was another $300 or $400. So for well less than $1,000, this has been a lovely addition to our home. And even in the challenging times of summer, it feels like it can be productive for us and not overheat our home, so long as we're thoughtful about how air moves and when we let it couple with the home and when we occlude it from doing that. So thanks for watching. Share some comments and ideas. Maybe you've got some suggestions of better ways to keep it cooler. How can we get those cucumbers a little more productive? And any questions you have, I'd love to try to field them. Thanks so much for watching.